Good evening, YouTube. It's me, Jeff Hale, with another video. And this video is, you're going to see I have my notes here because I want to make sure I cover everything. But this video is about talking about fly fishing. And have you ever considered fly fishing? And if you're somebody who's considered fly fishing but thought, you know what, I don't know, it's too expensive, or it's elitist, or it costs too much money, or it's too hard to do, I want to challenge that notion. And while it's true that some people want you to think fly fishing is hard and they want you to think it's elitist, it's also not. Fly fishing is a method that you can add to your arsenal, and you can make it as simple or as complex as you want. And that's the beauty of it, is there's always more. It's like actually mathematics, right? You'll never actually learn all of mathematics, and that's what's beautiful about it. There's always the next level. Same thing with fly fishing. You can always go to the next level. So I want to start off with a story. I was probably 19 or 20, and I was just starting my fly fishing adventure. I'm 50 now, and I went into the fly shop called the Swallow's Nest in Seattle, and I'll never forget this. I had just tied one of my very first flies, and I went in there, and I went up to one of the people at the counter who, it was a man who was an accomplished fly fisherman, and he was one of those people who wanted you to think fly fishing is hard, that it's elitist, that it's only for special people. And here's how I know why. I put that fly on, and then I said, wow, look, I tied my very first woolly bugger. And you know, you'll see what that is later on. Tied my very first woolly bugger. And he picked it up and he looked at it and he goes, you used head cement on this? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, if you really know how to tie flies, then you don't have to use head cement. And then he dropped my fly back down on the counter and walked away. Those are not the kind of people you want to associate yourself with if you want to learn how to fly fish. That person, I mean, come on, you're trying to sell fly fishing gear, right? He at least should have encouraged me or given me some positive feedback or even negative feedback. But hey, this is what you could do different. So those are the kind of people that want you to believe that. And actually, over the years, I've seen fewer and fewer and fewer of those people, and more people who want to bring people into the sport of fly fishing and want to add to the ranks. So if you encounter somebody like that, blow them off. That's not most people. So I'm going to be doing a series of videos on basic casts, casting to fish, not casting because it's beautiful. And I'm going to be doing some really, really, really basic flies that I can teach you, that you can tie right now. And you can get a cheap vise, and you can get a bobbin, and you can start tying these very simple flies inexpensively with minimal materials and minimal skill. So let's go back to this notion of why people, shy away from fly fishing. They either think it's just this art form, or it's just all about casting, or it's too complicated. There's only one reason I got into fly fishing, and that was because I wanted to catch more fish. And you might say, well, don't people catch less fish when they fly fish? No, that's not true. So here's a couple stories. I used to go down to the lake. I'd be like 16, 17, 18 years old, and I would fish. So this is before power bait. You old timers remember it. They had Zeke's floating cheese bait in like garlic, and you'd roll that into a ball and it would float. Or we would use marshmallows and salmon eggs, and we would cast off and we would catch trout off the bottom, right? Just hatchery planners, right? And while I would catch trout, there would be days where I wouldn't, and I would go to different lakes and I would see fly fishermen, and some of these fly fishermen and fly fisherwomen were catching huge trout, way more than me, on days that I was completely getting skunked. And that's because those trout were keyed in on a specific insect or bait fish that I was not replicating. What I was throwing out there did not look natural at all. And you have a smart old rainbow or brown, they're not going to swim by and eat a ball of whatever that's laying on the bottom of the lake. The other thing I used to do is I used to go out to the beach, and it was during coho season, and I would cast buzz bombs, and I would, every once in a while I would catch a coho. Every once in a while, right? You can go out today and you can see people throwing buzz bombs, and every once in a while they catch a coho. But I started to see these fly fishermen and these fly fisherwomen coming out to the beach, and they would be casting and stripping super fast, and I didn't know what this was all about. All I knew is I was getting blanked, and they were catching coho after coho after coho. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. What are they doing? Again, those coho were keyed into certain bait fish, and those fly fishers were throwing streamer patterns that looked just like the bait that they were eating. Buzz bomb didn't cut it. So those are a couple reasons why I was like, that's it. I'm going to learn how to do this because I want to catch more fish, right? Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, it's fun. But the bottom line is I want to catch more fish. And so if you want to catch more fish, you really need to learn how to fly fish. Period. So I want to summarize a few things. Fly fishing is not hard. It can be hard if you want it to be. You might hear terms like tippet and 4X and 5X and a cripple and an emerger. You can ignore most of that stuff until you're ready for it, right? I mean, you can get books that are this thick on aquatic entomology, or you can forget any of that, right? It's pretty inexpensive to get into. I will be sharing with you in these other videos some very inexpensive, cheap ways to get into this without much commitment. And then if you can see if you like it or you don't like it. One other thing is you don't even really have to know how to cast very well to do this. Another story. When I was guiding, I had a couple fly fishers, a couple gals hire me, but they were brand new and they really wanted to catch trout and they couldn't cast or couldn't cast very well. So I went to a lake where I know they had some nice big trout, and I had them on both sides of the drift boat, and I would row the drift boat and they would strip their line out and I would control the boat so that I would swing their flies into the zones, and bam, they were catching fish all day long, some of the biggest trout they ever caught. And that's exactly what you can do. You don't even have to know how to cast or know how to cast well. If you have a pontoon boat or you have a float tube, a pair of waders and flippers, after you watch a couple of these videos, you're going to be ready to literally go out to your local lake, kick out 20 yards, strip line off, and troll around and jig the rod every once in a while, and I guarantee you're going to catch some big, awesome trout. So it's super fun. You can make it as simple or as complex as you want. And part of my goal of making these videos is to help people become more comprehensive outdoors people, right? How to increase how to make your bench deeper, right? Whether that comes to hunting, fishing, or gathering, right? So watch out for these videos coming up. And if you like my videos, please subscribe. I appreciate that. And I'm going to be doing a giveaway here shortly of some flies. And we'll talk about that later in my other videos. So stay tuned for that. I hope you have a great evening. Adios, YouTube.